The guy looked at his subordinate's back and thought that he was definitely a sword master. He didn't even need modern tools. The brunette put his hand on the guy's shoulder and called him by name. He picked up the shovel and asked if he would help him with the digging when he finished. Xavier frowned and thought that not only did he not thank him, but he also made him work. How could he forget about his character? A system window appeared that Xavier regretted his decision. Lloyd leaned over to him and asked if he had helped out of curiosity, that he would definitely cheat someone, but in what way? He wanted to see the result, then what should be done, right? Finish what was started, and what should be done to finish it faster. The guy smiled and said that they needed to work together. Xavier looked at him irritably. He thought that the brunette was right, and for several days now he had been completely different, but he still could not trust him because of his past. The blue-haired man got to work and decided that he would be able to check it only after finishing the job. Xavier was digging with sweat on his brow. Lloyd was also working. He threw back the earth. The hero lifted the shovel triumphantly and stuck it into the ground. He raised his fist and shouted that the construction was complete. Lloyd looked defiantly at the sky. Xavier asked him what kind of hieroglyph it was. He replied that it was the logo of his brand. The hero looked back and asked if it was time for a check. He raised his head and continued, wasn't it time to see how he had fooled the innkeeper? Xavier looked at him silently. The wind was rustling. The fireplace was crackling. Smoke was coming out of the chimney of the house. The old woman was lying on the floor and saying how nice it was here. She was smiling and said that her joints were finally resting. The innkeeper raised his eyebrows and asked how this was possible. Lloyd smiled and thought that the people of this world could only be surprised. The old woman was smiling and thought that this power of heating the floors was almost like magic. The innkeeper looked at the hero and thanked him. He said that he had not seen his mother smile for a long time. Xavier opened his eyes in shock and thought that the innkeeper and his mother were laughing as he said. He looked at the hero and thought how this was possible. In one morning, not only his manner of speech and facial expression had changed, but he also worked hard and even fulfilled his promise. The blue-haired man thought, did he really want to see these people smile? It was impossible. He was not that kind of person. The innkeeper and his mother were smiling. Xavier smiled and thought that he saw how happy they were. A system window appeared that Xavier's interest level had increased by 2 points and was now at -29. Lloyd smiled. He looked around and said that he probably thought he wasn't such a piece of trash. He said no. The hero said he thought he was right. The guy smiled and thought that in any case the first order was completed, and even though he was in the red, it didn't matter. He thought it was because he had built this little house for advertising. A few days later, many people were standing in line. The man came out of the house and said he thought it would melt. Lloyd slapped the table and asked how he was. Wasn't it hot? Wouldn't he like a room like that in his house too? He handed over a sheet of paper and said that Model A was a separate building in the yard and Model B was a remodel of the house. If he signed both orders, he would get a 10% discount. The man shrank back and began to refuse. A system window appeared that the villager did not trust Lloyd. He said that they would see each other often, which meant